would like to start by appreciating the organizers of this very important event, the WAMDEVIN, West African Management Development Institute, for giving me the opportunity to make a presentation this morning to this very wonderful audience. And I also like to thank them particularly for coming up with this very timely and apt topic, Rethinking Research Towards Sustainable Development. And I think this is the most important time for us to look at such an issue, especially in the continent of Africa. I want to welcome my audience, the virtual audience, to this webinar today. And I want to believe that it's going to be an opportunity for us to rub minds together, to share thoughts as stakeholders in this very important business as we look at exploring new frontiers in research. Exploring new frontiers in research. When we talk about new frontiers, research is very dynamic, and the circle of research is becoming wider and wider every passing day. And so as the circle becomes wider, the circumference is also becoming longer. And so it's important for us to concentrate on the events around the edges, around the boundaries, and around the circumference. And that's what we mean by the frontiers in research. And those are some of the few things we shall be looking at this morning. I will be looking at the outline this way. We'll be looking at what is R&D. It's a very common phenomenon that most of us are very much used to. And then we want to talk a little bit about R&D. And then we'll look at research-based challenges and proposed solutions. We are from different backgrounds, different bases, as it were. And then how can we work together to ensure that we get the best out of what we are talking about? And of course, what are the various issues, what are the various challenges, and how can we come out of these challenges? And then we'll look at the stimuli, the goals, the characteristics, the quality and types of research. We'll run over these areas because I know many of us are not completely unfamiliar with this item number 3. And then we'll go to the very important one, the 21st century research skills. And then we'll have to look at about 9 of them. And I think I will really want to spend some time on this one so that we can look at what are some of the things that we need to have in this time and age and dispensation if you are to expand and explore the frontiers of research in the various fields. And then we also want to look at developing research skills through CRAFT. CRAFT is an acronym which I actually developed, and I want us to look at it and see how we can benefit from that acronym. And then we'll look at exploring new frontiers in research. What can we do? And then how can we actually expand frontiers in research? Now, R&D, research and development, like I said, a very common phenomenon, which actually was first mentioned in the second part of the 20th century. And then from that point, it has become something very important, a phenomenon that is used to measure the level of industrialization amongst the nations, research and development. Research is generated in the mind, in the heart. Of course, some issues are bothering you and you're looking at some issues. How you are reading a document and you are concerned, and then you have some ideas and the ideas prop up in your heart. That's how research begins. And then you take it off from there, you go to the laboratory, and then you try to incubate what is in your mind, or you try to implement it and change it and see what happens to it and look at it from different perspectives, or you go to the field, as the case may be, and you try to look at some of those things. And at the end of the day, your interest is to come up with either a process, a new product, a new technology, a new idea entirely, or perhaps you just want to add to an existing body of knowledge. And then that's the main reason why research is conducted. And at the end of the day, you go to the next step. Whatever you come out with, a new technology, a new process, a new technology, whatever it is, you want to commercialize it, mass produce it, and that is what is called development. So when we say research and development, something that comes up in the mind as an idea, and eventually is something that has become so big that is able to help the economy of a nation to grow massively. And that is what is called development. Now, let's look at Africa. Of course, you know that industrialized nations of the world have done very well in the area of R&D, but it's not particularly too bad in the African continent. I just stumbled on this Royal Academy of Engineers, African Best Invention 2019 shortlist. And I saw quite a lot of inventions that have been done in Africa, quite a good number of them. If you have time, just go to the website and see brilliant things that people have come up with in Africa, from NGOs, from universities, from research centers, from so many places, even students, researchers, academics, things that have been able to lead to development of African continent. For example, in Uganda, somebody developed a smart haven because they had what they call urban planning crisis, accommodation crisis, or housing crisis in the whole of Uganda. And of course, they were confused. They never knew how to go about it. And this fellow developed a smart haven, which is able to address the very nagging issue of urban crisis which they have in Uganda. And of course, that qualified to be on the short list of African best inventions in 2019. In Kenya, somebody developed a magic water. Magic water is a technology that develops or that harvests water from the air. And of course, that was able to solve some problems they had in Kenya. And of course, that also qualified to be on the list of African best inventions. Ditto for Kaushi, a cash transfer software, which is so seamless and easy to go about it. And of course, it's an app that was developed here in Nigeria. And of course, that also qualified for being mentioned on the short list. We have a Zenafree. This one is particularly interesting because most of the African diaspora, they are in the US, their children are there, they've never been to their home countries, and of course they speak English, they don't even have the knowledge of their local language, and sometimes parents are worried. And so this fellow developed this particular app, which you can download, and then your kids, wherever they are, they can play with these downloads and learn some of these traditional stories. They can learn about where they have come from in different local languages. And of course, this one also happened. Then you have Palibok Smart Lockers, a dispenser which is able to dispense pharmaceuticals without you seeing the pharmacist there. And that was very interesting in South Africa. And of course, 3D industrial dryers, quite a good number of them. And these are technologies, these are applications, these are processes, these are inventions that were developed in Africa. And of course, as you understand that a major problem in Africa is not actually lack of all of these inventions, but where we have issues is to carry it from here to the next phase, which is the area of development, to mass produce them, to commercialize them, so that indeed it can actually impact on our economy. I want to show you a table here, and then you want to see the industrialized nations of the world and see the countries with the highest expenditure in R&D, and this is in 2018. Just pay particular attention to the very first 5 countries. United States with $581 billion investment on R&D in 2018. And then you have China, Japan, Germany, South Korea. So when they say big nations, big economics, what powers industrialized nations, is because they have come to invest heavily on R&D, and of course they are also reaping the benefits. And that's a lesson that we need to learn in this part of the world, that our nations, our governments, we have to increase or up the finances or the expenditure in this area. Now look at these countries with highest expenditure on R&D, and then you see what happens shortly. Look at this table or this graph and see the particular thing that happened, because they have invested heavily on R&D, and then you now have the global apps downloads in billions produced by local companies in these same countries. In the United States alone, they have 17 billion global downloads of applications. These are things that people are developing technologies, developing applications that are able to solve human problems and all of that. And of course, it's going to impact on the economy of such nations. And you see again, the first 5 countries, you have United States of America, you have France, and then Korea, United Kingdom, the same type of countries that I showed you earlier on, who have invested heavily on R&D, and now they are reaping the benefits of such investment. Now, let's now come home to our continent and see the picture of a scientist who is either working in an NGO or working in a university or working in an MDA. Because I know that I have a very diverse audience from research institutes, from MDAs, from NGOs, and that's why I find this thing to be particularly interesting. Who does research? That's the question that comes to you and I. Of course, by the very nature of their setup and by the very nature of their calling and mandate, universities are primarily research centers. So that is very straightforward. And of course, our African universities are doing their bit. They are doing well. They are doing a lot of research. They're carrying out research and coming up with a lot of technologies, inventions, processes, and all of that. But how about the MDAs and the NGOs? Now, MDAs, the ministries, departments, and agencies, also, by virtue of their mandate, some of them have what they call research centers, or research units, or research directorates. And what are they supposed to do? They're also supposed to carry out some levels of research, perhaps basic levels of research. Why universities, we have to carry out basic research, carry out advanced research, exploratory research, applied research, all forms of research in the because it's a research center. But now the MBAs, most of the time they carry out basic research. Of course, they have to get a lot of data and then try to analyze the data and see what happens and all of that. But all of them, they also expect to carry out some levels of research. Now come to the NGOs, right in the middle. These non-governmental organizations also carry out their own levels of research. And I will give you an example. In most of the African countries, you see some of these NGOs who have been monitoring election in the past 5 years, in the past 7 years, in the past 10 years. And of course, they compile this data year in, year out. And of course, they see what happens to the data, how the people fearing when it comes to electioneering, the number of voters that come out every year, the number of eligible voters, the number of rejected votes, and all of that. And this is important data that have been compiled by these NGOs. And also they have this data, this database on their own. And a lot of them also get funding to carry out these levels of research. And of course, they try to analyze it and they try to do whatever they feel is important to do with this research. So all of these entities, MDAs on one side, universities, research centers, research institutes, and all other academic centers on the other hand, and you have the NGOs in between. The question is, who does research? The answer is all of them do research, of course, at various levels. But what is the challenge? And I want us to look at the challenge very carefully. The challenge is that you can see this fellow almost falling down. And that's the challenge of instability, what I call the challenge of imbalance. There's a challenge of imbalance, and if care is not taken, this fellow is going to fall down because he wants to come from a university, he wants to collaborate with somebody in the NGO, and of course, there are different, because they are singing discordant tunes, and there's a challenge of instability, challenge of imbalance in the mandates, in the calling, and all of that, and so this fellow is not able to get the best out of it. And that's exactly the picture we have in Africa. Also, you have the challenge of inaccessibility. A lot of research that is being conducted, people don't have access to it. And because people don't have access to it, those research, they are there. And of course, some other people don't even know that this research has been conducted somewhere. And these results are somewhere to be used by some segment in the society. Also, the challenge of intersection. Intersection means that all of these researchers in all of these areas were expected to come together and intersect at a particular point, and so that we can move the nation forward. And I think that's the greatest challenge, And of course, there has to be an anchor at the national level to be able to bring together the universities, the academia, the research centers, the NGOs, the international NGOs, the national NGOs, and then the MDAs together, so that we have a body of research that is conducted that has national, very much. So I was talking about the very challenge, or the challenges that we have in our nations in Africa. Of course, I've talked about all of these challenges. Yes. And the last one is the challenge of insolvency. And by that, I mean the challenge of funding. Funding is a major issue in the continent of Africa. Funding is a major issue in our universities, in the MDAs, and of course, the NGOs. So we need to look at all of these challenges and then see how to bridge them. And of course, the issue of funding is what is going to lead us to the second discussion, which we are going to listen to very, very shortly. But I have to bring up these challenges for us to begin to ruminate over and discuss. Now, what is the solution to all of these challenges? The solution is very clear, and that is why I said the theme of this discussion is very apt and very timely. Rethinking research towards national development. And that's what we have to do. We just have to rethink research at our own various levels. Rethink what? What kind of research are we doing? What kind of research are we doing at various levels in MDAs, in the NGOs? What is the mandate? What kind of mandate do we have? And what forms of research are we doing? We also need to rethink how we do these types of research that we are called to do. We need to rethink where do we carry out these forms of research? We need to rethink who are the participants, who are the collaborators, who are the researchers, who are the people that we need to have together on our teams, from the universities, from the research centers, the MDAs, and then the NGOs. Everybody will have to come on board to be able to discharge this research and carry it out robustly that will lead to national development. So having said that, I want us to look at research stimuli. What is it that stimulates research? Of course, we know that once there's a gap in the existing body of knowledge, you've taken some time to look at the literature and you see that there's a particular gap somewhere and you're interested in filling that gap. That's what stimulates you to carry out research. Or sometimes insufficient explanation for a phenomenon, or sometimes a persisting problem. Persisting problem now for the past 6 months, 7 months, there's a problem that has been ravaging the entire world. And of course, everybody is trying to look for solutions to this problem, from the levels of statistics, from the levels of medicine, levels of engineering, software development, computer scientists, environmental scientists, everybody, agricultural scientists, everybody coming together to look at this particular persisting problem. And so a researcher observes, it's important, notices or becomes aware of any of the above and attempts to solve through the process of research. And that's what we mean by research. So when you look at all of these gaps, all of these persistent problems in your communities, in the nation, in the continent, around you, you pay particular attention to all of these issues and you make attempts, underline the word attempt, you make attempt to solve them. You may not be able to solve them now, you will solve them tomorrow. Or you may not be the person that will solve them, but you're going to start somewhere and somebody will pick it up. So the most important word there is attempt to solve them through the process of research. And that's what I mean by research. Now, what are the research goals? When you conduct research, what do you have in mind? What's the purpose? What are the aims? The purpose is to generate new knowledge. There's an existing body of knowledge which you have studied and you have seen the gap. And of course, you want to expand the frontiers. You want to expand and add some new knowledge to it. Or you want to expand existing body of knowledge or to validate the existing one. These are the 3 goals. Create new one, expand the existing one, or validate the ones that are there already. Quickly, let's look at the characteristics. The kind of research that we are looking at in the continent, in Africa, is a kind of research that must be born out of logical reasoning. You must be able to induce and deduce. This is very, very key. You must be able to draw conclusions from a particular fact or make inferences from general principles. This ability is very important and is what marks you out or distinguishes you or gives you a leverage when it comes to the issue of research. And these are the research characteristics we're talking about. And of course, real-time data gathering, which is very important. And of course, in-depth analysis of data, which has to be systematic and rigorous processing. Now, what is the quality of research that we're looking at? There are 2 measuring parameters for the quality of any research anywhere in the world. The first one is the process, and the second one is the product. So it's not just that you want to carry out research. You have vision for research, you have passion for research, and you want to go into it, and somebody gives you money to carry out research. The most important thing is that the process, and the second one is the product. When we talk about the process has to be standard in such a way that there is an existing format for carrying out such kind of research in that particular field. And so you must understand that format and follow it thoroughly. That's very important and that's very key. And so you must be aware clearly of how such kind of research is being conducted. You must understand the ethics. You must understand the methodology. You must understand the process and follow it in a standard way. And that's what is called standard operating procedures. And shortly after that, or closely related to that, is the issue of reproducibility. The kind of research the kind of research that we're talking about is one that is reproducible. In other words, by the time you finish the research and you come up with the results, and the result is quite very interesting and exciting, somebody else should be able to reproduce the same type of research, given the same scenarios, or given the same type of conditions that you have listed out in your narratives. In other words, there must not be any ambiguity about it. It must be very clear and straightforward. The steps must be very clear, and that's the quality of research. So when we look at the kind of research, we're looking at the process. Are there ambiguities there? Are there some things that are not clear? Can I do it again the way you have said it? Do I understand it enough? Is the process very clear? Does it follow standard procedures? If you have answered that question, then that's important. Then the second one is the product. The product, of course, must be very significant and remarkable, but one leads to the other. If the process is good, if the process is standard enough and it's reproducible, of course, the product will also be good. So these are the two measuring parameters for the quality of research. Now, of course, we know research types. I'll talk about different levels of research being conducted in the universities, in MDs, and of course in the NGOs. Some are conducting basic research, while some are doing basic and applied research, hybrid research. Some are doing exploratory research, some are doing explanatory research, and all forms of research like that. But of course, we can classify them by mode and by motivation into two, the basic research and the applied research. What is motivating you? If what is motivating you is knowledge expansion, I just want to get more knowledge. I want to be able to add to this data. I want to keep compiling this data and compare it with what happened last year, and of course, add to what happens this year. Of course, that motivation is very clear, then that is what is called basic research. But if there is a particular problem around you, and you have observed that particular phenomenon, and you are concerned about that particular problem, and you want to solve that problem, maybe an environmental issue around your communities, maybe a level of a type of contamination around your communities, maybe a particular health issue, and you are so much concerned about this problem, and you want to solve it, then we are not talking about basic research, we are talking about applied research. So by mode and by motivation, research types are either basic and applied, and it depends on where you are. It depends on the mandate of your organization, the mandate of your institution, and whatever is motivating you, for you to know which kind of research you want to go into, either basic or applied. Now, I want us to look at these 9 21st century research skills. These are the skills that everyone must have or attempt to have if indeed you want to be a researcher that will be very successful, a researcher that will carry out research and will get results, and the results will be able to meet the needs of the society. And the 9 of them are listed here. The first one is that there must be both high skills. Both high skills means that there must be vision, there must be foresight, and of course the vision has to be very sharp. By vision, I mean what is what you see, the kind of vision you see, and that vision has to be very clear about the entire research, about the entire length and breadth, the entire dimensions and the magnitude of the research. You must be able to see through it and see what you want to do, right from the problem stage to the solution stage. So the vision, the foresight, the sharpness, that's what we call the both high skills. Now the second one is the deep thinking skills. A researcher that wants to be very successful, wherever he or she is, either in the MDAs or in the NGOs or in the universities or the research centers, they must be able to have what they call critical thinking, problem-solving thinking, a cognition that is very deep, and of course, logical reasoning. You must be able to induce and you must be able to deduce. The number 3 is the planning skills. By planning skills, we mean that you must be able to plan. You can't be haphazard. You can't be disorganized. You must be able to plan through and set your time and prepare everything you need and know exactly what you need to enter into this process and get everything set. And then you start the research and you finish the research. It's not like you start the research, then along the line, you now discover that you need X, Y, Z, and you have to stop it there and start running up and down. Of course, that is not going to be a successful researcher. And of course, the next one is the organizational skills. You must be able to manage human resources, manage financial resources, manage all kinds of resources, and then have what they call a standard work ethics if you're going to be a successful researcher. Number 5 is the communicating skills. You must be able to reach out to the right people with the right message. That's important because a researcher communicates. You communicate with your team members. You communicate with the communities. Sometimes we have to carry out interviews, either a structured interview or structured interview. Sometimes you have to reach out to the government with the results you have come up with in your research. Sometimes you have to have a policy dialogue. Sometimes you have to have dissemination, either into a small dissemination or perhaps organize conferences and then reach out to the people with what you have come up with. So you must be able to reach out with the right message to the right people. So who am I communicating with? Who are the people I'm engaging with? And then what is the message I have for them? And that's the skills. Of course, the next one is the technology skills. These are important. And of course, these days, they are abundantly available. And a researcher must be familiar with them. A researcher must be aware of all of these tools, applications, and platforms that you need to be able to help you and facilitate your research, and of course, strengthen it and make it a lot easier for you. And then you have interrogating skills. This is very important. You must be able to inquire, what you call spirit of inquiry. You must be able to question what is happening. And then this questioning techniques is what is called interrogating skills. And these are things you need to develop for you to be a successful researcher. And of course, number 8, reading skills, and number 9, writing skills. This is also very important. And now let's look at the craft. Developing research skills through craft. This craft is what you, as a researcher, need to have. You must be able to craft yourself in such a way that you become a successful researcher in this century. And craft means collaborate, read, attend, follow the rules, and take your time. And that's what I call craft. Collaborate means that you can't do it all alone. You need to join successful teams. If you're in the MDAs, look for the people who are carrying out the kind of research you are doing and join them. For example, I told you about some NGOs that are getting data and compiling data for so many years now for the electioneering campaigns or the election proper. And of course, they're getting all kinds of data. And of course, we also have departments of demographics in the universities, departments of statistics in universities. And so there has to be a lot of collaboration. It's not just that you're getting the data, you need to go to right people and collaborate with them. Join successful teams. And by that, you develop yourself. And then over the time, you also can now become a successful researcher. That's very key. So identify where to join, identify who to work with, and join successful teams. Then you have to read very wide, read extensively. In a particular area you have chosen, a particular area you're interested in, and you have to get a lot of materials and study it and get a lot of facts about it and be very abreast of what is happening in that area. And the third one is to attend relevant events. Of course, seminars, conferences, workshops, webinars, symposia, things like this that can assist you and support you to be able to widen your knowledge base and strengthen whatever you believe in and help you out so that you can be a successful researcher. And also follow the rules. You can't afford to circumvent the rules. You can't afford to circumvent the rules. You must follow the rules of the game, and you have to learn the ethics. Research has its own ethics and it has its own rules, and the rules are very clear. And so you must follow the rules, and that's why you have to learn the ropes and join the right people and collaborate and learn as they do it and see the way it is done. And after that, you learn the ethics over the time, and then you get the right result. And take your time. Be well grounded. Take your time. Take your time. Be groomed and be grounded. Now, let's look at exploring new frontiers in research. There are 6 things I'm going to look at, and then that will lead me to the end of this presentation. Because now we are talking about exploring new frontiers in research. Exploring new frontiers in research. I told you that research is very dynamic. And of course, the circle is becoming wider and the circumference is becoming longer. And of course, you are interested in what is happening around the edges. You're interested in what is happening around the horizons. And so you are looking at paying particular attention to what is happening around those boundaries so that you can also key into it and join the winning team. And that's what I mean that exploring new frontiers in research. And the first one is class. What kind of research are we interested in? And what kind of research should we be looking at in this continent of Africa or in all of these areas where we have come from? So the class of research is very important. We are talking about a research that is conducted that defies current paradigms and tackles fundamental problems from new perspectives. That's very important. Fundamental problems, fine, has been solved, but you want to look at it from a different perspective entirely. And that's the cutting edge, that's the frontiers that you might have to look into. Or you want to look at weaknesses of globally acceptable methods. And then you want to develop new methods. Take, for example, there's a particular statistical package. I'm giving you as an example. And then anytime you apply this package, is going to give you perhaps maybe a 90% confidence level, or it has accuracy level of 90% or 95% or 60% or 70%. Of course, that's a weakness. So each time you do it, people will ask you, are you sure this result are okay? Say, yes, it's okay because I applied so package. But they tell you, this package has this accuracy level of so. And so you are aware of all of these things. And so you as a statistician, now you're looking at how can I leverage on this weakness and of course develop the accuracy of this particular tool so that I can increase it to like 90%. And that's the frontier we are talking about. And of course, you can look at the instruments you are using now. This instrument has its own weaknesses. How can I improve it to be able to solve this problem? So these are the dynamics we are talking about. These are the frontiers we are looking at, or addressing global problems. So the research you are talking about, the research you are looking at must fall to this class if it's going to be at the edge and at the boundary we are talking about. You must be able to define or defy new paradigms and then solve fundamental problems and look at it from new perspectives, or you improve the weaknesses of the existing theories, methods, tools, applications, whatever we are using. And of course, you also get involved in solving global problems. The second one is the currency. The research that is going to solve problems and lead to development is the kind of research that is current. The currency is very much important. It's not the kind of research that somebody has done so many years ago, and because you just stumble on it now, and you also want to get involved with it. So we are looking at what are the new things? What are the current challenges? What are the current trends? What is the dominant features in the discussion? What is the dominant narratives in the conferences, in the seminars, in the webinars? What is things that people are talking about? What is the ongoing issue? What are the existing narratives? You must be familiar with all of these things and you key yourself into it. And that is the currency we are talking about. Currency is very important. And for you to be current, you must follow conference proceedings, get communiques, scientific press conferences, book of abstracts, and then look at home pages of academic associations and societies. I give you two examples. If you are in the health and medicine, of course, you know that you must be looking at what can we do better to prepare ourselves for pandemics in the future. So this is the current thing. This is the new thing, and this is what everybody is talking about. Attend any conference, any seminar now. People are talking about all of these issues. What are the lessons the medical community will learn from COVID-19? It's still going to be with us for some time, and of course, the research community must also focus on these ongoing events. If you are dealing with world issues, how would COVID-19 change the world economy? That's the fear. That's the concern. So if you're in the humanities, you're looking at how is it going to impact on the economy? How is it going to impact on the security? How is it going to impact on the whatever it is in the nations and the communities? How can we better secure our world? Security is a major issue. And so you must be able to design and think of what you can do to solve all these problems. Green energy, and of course, the sustainable development goals. These are the existing issues. Few of them, there are quite a good number of them. I just brought out these few examples for us to understand that these are dominant issues, ongoing events, and existing narratives that we must key into if you are going to conduct the type of research that will lead to development. The third one is conceptualization. Somebody said research fails ultimately that is poorly conceptualized. Whatever the funding that you have, whatever the amount of money you have, whatever the equipment, once it is poorly conceptualized, of course, the end result is very clear. That is failure. And so you must conceptualize your research very clearly. That is, think right. Once you don't get it right at the beginning, then there's no way you can do it. Or if you're going to get it right along the line, you're going to spend more time, spend more resources, and at the end of the day, you have a lot of issues along the line. So the best thing is to think right, think straight, and think through, so that you can be able to explore new frontiers in research. The fourth one is collaboration. I've talked so much about collaboration, and I think I will know, maybe when we are discussing, we'll talk more about it. But one thing that is important is the triple helix, which we have been talking about these days. Triple helix means that academia, and then the industries, and the government, all of these three bodies must collaborate together, and this is important. The MDAs, the NGOs, the academia, they must collaborate together. And I'm sure now today, in our virtual audience, we have people from MDAs, the NGOs, and the academia. We have to collaborate together. And this collaboration means infusion or integration of ideas, theories, concepts from two or more disciplines, two or more professions, and we bring all of these things together, and that's what we need to solve national problems. We must learn to cross professional boundaries and all forms of boundaries to be able to expand or explore the frontiers of research. And then we look at the next one, which is creativity. Creativity is motivated by curiosity. And of course, it must be seated on a vast knowledge base. It's not just curiosity, but curiosity that is seated on a vast knowledge base. In other words, you have explored the literature, you have read very widely, and now you know what you are supposed to know, and you are very much familiar of the current situations, and you are curious on how to add to this existing body of knowledge, and that is what will lead you to creativity. How can you be creative? You must read wide, number one. And number two, you must be willing to learn new things at all stages of the process. It is important. Be willing to learn from students, willing to learn from your colleagues, willing to learn from farmers, willing to learn from the practitioners in the communities, from every sector. You must be willing to learn new things. Don't close up your mind and think that you know it all. Sometimes as professors, you learn from your students. And sometimes as experts in agriculture, you learn from the farmers. Sometimes as extension agents, you learn from the practitioners. Sometimes as professors of medicine or medical practitioners, you learn from the patients and see and ask them questions. And of course, they help you out of it. And so be willing to learn new things in all stages. Sometimes take a break from the problem statement and let your mind wander about. These are things that will help your creativity. You must be flexible in your expectations. Don't just be rigid. This is what I'm expecting. It's like something is wrong. It may not be wrong. It may just be that you are getting something new. You're expecting to see this at the end of the day, but you're getting something new. And so be flexible. Don't be too rigid. You may be launching yourself into a new world of research at the end of the day. And so rewrite the problem in a completely different way. Sometimes you may have to change the narratives, rewrite the problem for you to understand it better and for you to be able to attack it from another dimension entirely and get the result. And then try things others are not trying and look where they are not looking. Some people sometimes are extremely gifted in seeing things others are not seeing and trying what others are not trying. And so if you are that type of person, you may have to look at things from this perspective and don't be afraid to get things wrong. And of course, the last one is the competence. And competence is relative. There are some general expectations when it comes to competence, and there are some specific expectations when it comes to competence. It's relative to profession and relative to disciplines. It's also relative to your area of specialization. And so the kind of competence you are supposed to have, you must understand it and know it fully. And so when we talk about competence, we're talking about competence in the psychological, scientific, and practical readiness to solve problems and to be able to address some fundamental issues. And I want to give you an example of the University of California School of Nursing. Competencies required for a successful researcher. If you go to their website, you see this one pasted there. That anybody that wants to come to this institute and be a successful researcher in nursing at the University of California must have the following competencies. The first one is research question formulation. That's specific to their own area of specialization. And of course, it also cuts across at varying levels. Study design and sampling. You must be very good in quantitative measurement. You must be very good in bias and confounding. You must have some level of competence in data science. If you're going to conduct research and be a successful researcher in this area, you must be very good in statistical analysis and of course synthesis and implementation science. So when you go there and you like to conduct research in this area, you must have all of these things and develop yourselves and acquire skills where necessary and expose yourself to different levels of training and get a lot of tools in all of these areas, because they have seen that for you to be a successful researcher, there is no way you can escape any of all of these competencies. And so in your own area of specialization, in your field, in your area of interest, look at the competencies that you require and develop yourselves appropriately and train yourself appropriately by joining successful teams, by asking questions, by attending programs, by training yourself in all of these areas so that at the end of the day, you can be a successful researcher. Now, let me close this discussion by giving you this particular quotation from Maria Robinson. And it said, nobody can go back and start a new beginning, but anyone can start today and make a new ending. That's very key. And so it's not about the past, it's about now. You can start something now. You can start a collaboration now. You can develop competencies today. You can start today. You can start to attend. Fortunately, now these are the days of free webinars here and there. You can start to attend programs now and develop skills that will strengthen your competencies and make you ready for the 21st century research we are talking about. So start today. Start today. Make up your mind. Whatever you need to do, do it now. And forget about the past and think about today and tomorrow. And so these are some of the references I would like to share with you. And the key is to do it together, everybody. Thank you very much.